Good morning, everybody. We're going to start the meeting here in about 1 minute.
Good evening. Thank you for attending the annual meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. I'm going to begin, after now I've called the meeting to order, by introducing board members and then administrators who are going to be presenting this evening. So I am Stacy Johnson-Myers, and I currently serve as the school board president. Alan Tuchtenhagen is here. He serves as the vice president. Lindsay Curtis is our clerk for the school board. Mike Miller is the treasurer. Allison Page is a school board member. I don't see her yet. Bo Herstein is a member of the school board. He'll be slipping in. Monica Levold is a member of the school board. Mr. David Bell is our brand new superintendent. And I will very briefly say that one of the most important responsibilities of a school board is to hire and support a superintendent. And it's early days, but the school board is convinced that we've made an excellent decision in hiring Mr. David Bell. And Lynette Coy is our Director of Finance and Facilities. So at this point, we will move into electing a chairperson for this meeting. Allison Page just walked in. I just called your name, so perfect timing. Are there any nominations for chairperson of the annual meeting? Please stand up and tell us your name for the minutes. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chairperson of the annual meeting? If not, nominations are closed and Elaine Bauman is affirmed as the chairperson of the annual meeting. So you may take this spot, Elaine.
Okay, first of all, the agenda for the meeting tonight is on page 3. If you'd like to turn to that to follow along. And I appoint Brian Goodman as parliamentarian for the annual meeting, and I appoint Amanda Taylor as the clerk of the annual meeting. And now I would like to ask David Bell, Superintendent Bell, to provide the State of the District presentation.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to provide the superintendent report for tonight's meeting. I see very familiar faces in the crowd, but for those of you that don't know me, my name's David Bell. I've served as the River Falls superintendent since July 1st, and prior to that, I was the director of human resources and leadership development for 7 years in this district. My family and I live in the district. My son graduated from River Falls High School in 2023. My daughters attend here 9th and 11th grade, and I'm humbled and excited to be in this new role. So before we start the presentation tonight, I would just like to take a moment to express my gratitude to Brian Jekyll, Amanda Taylor, Lynette Coy, Jenny Ames, and our IT department for the preparation of the agenda, resources, and technology for tonight's meeting. It takes a great deal of behind-the-scenes organization to make sure that all goes well for tonight, and we appreciate that. Okay, so we'll get into the presentation. So the goal tonight is to share with the community a progress report for our school district. My hope is that when you leave tonight, you will remember the following things. First, that our work starts with a school board approved mission, vision, and strategic plan that was developed by the community with parent, student, and staff input. This is the process that we will continue to aspire to. And we're prioritizing the most important elements of that strategic plan by focusing on academic growth, student engagement, and employee satisfaction. And as we strive for this improvement, we have a lot to celebrate and be thankful for. So there's a screenshot of the strategic plan. It puts into tangible action the concepts that are shared in our mission. And the full strategic plan includes 8 core values, 5 broad goals, and 34 sub-goals. So our first goal is to hold high expectations for student learning. Our second goal is to provide a safe, welcoming, and healthy school environment. Our third goal is to attract, retain, and develop high-quality staff. Our fourth goal is to provide life readiness skills. And our fifth goal is to uphold operational excellence. As we look forward to the upcoming year, I thought it would be a good idea to take a moment to highlight the student, school, and community successes over the 23-24 school year. Our district continues to demonstrate high levels of student achievement on state assessments and college entrance exams. The district is ranked in the top 16% in academic achievement on the most recent school report card. We see this as a celebration and a challenge for continued growth. As I will outline throughout this presentation, we have a strong belief that all students can meet and exceed high expectations for student achievement. We also believe that standardized testing provides a narrow assessment of the learning that takes place in our schools. So I just wanted to take a minute to highlight 2 ways that we pursue academic growth that might not show up on a traditional academic or a state assessment. Our district has a robust and comprehensive college and career readiness planning program, starting at the elementary and middle school and ramping up in high school. Our students participate in lessons designed at identifying their strengths and their passions and understanding how these passions can support their future goals. The result is 165 high school course offerings, 158 students earning college credit while at school, 34 students participating in CVTC academies or associate degree programs, and apprentice opportunities in skilled trades such as electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. In addition, our district implements tiers of support focused on consistent, high-quality instructional techniques in all classrooms, and when students are identified as needing additional support, we have a plan of attack. And that plan of attack includes experts in the areas of math, reading, and behavioral interventions to support those students. Our pursuit of excellence extends beyond the classroom in the areas of fine arts, athletics, and vocational organizations. Our students consistently have shown the ability to perform at the highest levels in the region and across the state. I could spend a lot of time on this section, and in fact, I was worried if I did that I would obviously forget something that our students have done, but I'll take a swing at it. First, 23-24 marked the 24th state championship for our River Falls High School marching band. This past year was a dominant performance in which they had top marks not just overall, but in color guard, visual presentation, and musical presentation. In addition to that state championship, we had many students in both vocal and instrumental music, in solo and ensembles recognized at the state level. Last year, in middle school and high school, our drama departments completed performances of Newsies and Anything Goes. Both of these performances separately included over 100 students in the cast and crew and represented a high level of musical, dramatical, and technical skills. Our forensics department, Futures Farmers of America, robotics team, mock trial, Future Business Leaders of America, all provided opportunities for students to demonstrate leadership and career-focused skills at the state and regional levels. Our athletic teams completed a very successful year. We had volleyball, girls hockey, boys hockey, girls soccer qualify for team state, and we had student athletes qualify in individual competitions in tennis, swimming, diving, gymnastics, wrestling, track and field, cross country, and I probably missed one there as well. At the elementary level, student pursuit of co-curricular activities looks a little bit different. However, through the support of teachers and community volunteers, we had students explore leadership opportunities through student council and character committees. These organizations allowed students to participate in service learning. Examples include things like the Veterans Day breakfast, bell ringing, supporting the Humane Society, as well as other organizations as well as organizing character education assemblies in their schools. Our students are quite remarkable, and we're thankful for partnering with families in these endeavors, and we never forget that these exciting and memorable opportunities are not possible without the support of our community. We have a highly trained staff. Last year, we had 10 employees who retired from the district, and those employees served for a total of 271 years for our school district. We have right now 64 staff members with over 20 years of experience within our district. 9 of those have over 30 years of experience. And we're thankful for their experience and their long-term commitment to our organization, and it highlights the importance of creating effective and positive employee onboarding and mentoring programs, which we will lean on our experienced employees to do, because we're welcoming 68 new employees to the organization in all employee groups. And 23 staff members will step into new roles this year. And a crucial factor to our overall success is our ability to have highly qualified and effective employees who support the growth in our district. Last year, in February, our community supported 2 separate referendum votes. The passage of the operational referendum will increase the operational revenue needed to maintain programs and services, hire and retain staff, and purchase instructional materials and supplies. The support is greatly appreciated. It's also understood that with this support comes accountability. Later tonight, Lynette's going to share a full summary of our 24-25 budget. The passage of the bond facilities referendum allows the district to address infrastructure improvements to our schools, add a transportation center, and add multi-purpose spaces at the high school that will support PE, athletic programs, co-curricular activities, and youth programming. Since February, the district has worked with Bray Architects and Kraus Anderson Construction to design and plan the projects that are outlined in the referendum. The following graphic, which you all can't see, I understand that, outlines the timelines for each project. The broad overview is that the high school multipurpose center will start construction this winter and should be completed by the fall of 2025. The transportation center will follow a similar schedule. Rocky Branch and West Side renovations will occur mainly in the summer of 2025 and shouldn't interrupt any school functions. The Meyer Middle School renovations will take place over 2 summers, the summer of 25 and the summer of 26. On the financial side of the project, the district was able to lock in an interest rate of 4.14% for these projects. This is lower than what we had anticipated, which was 5.25%. So that means a lower interest burden for the bond. Tracking our progress. So obviously it's important that all referendum projects are aligned to our plans within budget and on schedule. And so we have a core planning team that meets regularly to monitor each project to ensure that timelines and budget expectations are met. And we've established a proactive communication strategy that provides monthly updates to the school board and the public at finance and facility committee meetings, at full school board meetings. And then we follow that progress up with putting that out on our website as well as social media. Okay, so as we look forward to the 24-25 school year, one thing that's important to remember is we're never going to settle. We're ready to accept the challenges that come with continuous growth. So school district is a large organization with lots of moving parts, lots of competing priorities. It can be overwhelming. So the messaging this year is that we're really focusing on a disciplined planning process. And a key part of that approach is to recognize that we can't give the same level of attention on each strategic plan subgoal. Therefore, we're concentrated on ensuring that we're spending the most amount of time on the most important priorities. So what are our most important priorities? Well, based on feedback from parents, employees, and students, as well as analysis of our current position for academic and engagement data, we're prioritizing the following areas: academic growth, student engagement, and employee satisfaction. You will see these themes in the way we organize our in-service time, how we spend our resources, and in the data we collect. Our goal is to zero in on actions that are within our influence and our control that will lead to tangible growth in these areas. Ultimately, I am accountable to the students, the staff, families, and the board to ensure that these actions that we take over the year align to the words that I'm speaking today. So, actions speak louder than words. So what actions are we going to take to address academic growth? We're going to focus on actions that lead to increased reading proficiency at the elementary level, meeting or exceeding priority learning standards at Meyer Middle, performance at or above grade level, or demonstrating above average growth in content area reading at the high school. We'll look at forward exam scores, making sure that they're growing at a faster rate than districts that are comparable to us, and AP exam scores of 3 or above, and ACT increasing, and ACT composite scores that are increasing. You say, what are we going to do about academic growth? That's the way we're going to measure it, and we're going to have lead measures that are identified to help support that. When we talk about connections and we talk about engagement, we're going to take steps that decrease the number of students who are chronically absent. We're going to increase parent connections as measured by a parent feedback survey that we give on an annual basis. We'll make sure that our district website's accessible, and we'll look to increase student participation in co-curricular activities. When we talk about employee satisfaction, we're looking at things like employee retention and job satisfaction feedback, improving market competitiveness in the areas of wages and benefits with comparable districts, completing our facilities projects, and increasing opportunities for authentic employee collaboration. We're going to track our progress. So I know a lot of you here like to come to board meetings. Really, this is a group that is there. So you know this, but a foundational component to achieving our goals is to create a culture not only of setting these goals, but monitoring these goals. So our board plays an important role at that. At our next school board meeting, which is on September 30th, the board will review a scorecard with key performance indicators that will help us track the progress of these goals, and our intention is to meet or exceed the targets. However, if we do not, we're committed to finding new lead measures that will impact change. The pursuit is ongoing and continuous. Over the course of the school year, this monitoring will be a key element of our committee and board meetings. So, in closing, I just want to thank everybody for being here, taking time out of a beautiful Monday evening to listen to me talk about school board functions is maybe not on the top of your list, but I do genuinely appreciate that. Our schools are fortunate to have an engaged community that asks questions, that supports our school district, and our students benefit from that. And I hope that our school continues to be a source of pride for our community. Thank you.
And now I ask Lynette Coy to come and provide the 2025 school year budget presentation.
Fun size mic. Hi, good evening. I'm Lynette Coy, Director of Finance and Facilities. Thanks for joining us this evening. I am going to take us through the proposed 24-25 budget in just a minute, but first I want to mention that we have a finance and business webpage, and Amanda's going to bring that up. Thank you, Amanda. So on this page, we have posted our previous annual meeting booklets as well as previous year's annual audit reports. We've also posted on here information and documentation from the Renaissance Charter Academy specific to the current lease agreement for the building, which was approved in 2022. So for those of you that are interested, we've got some items posted here on our finance and business page. So our budget begins on page 6 of your booklet. If you have that in front of you, you'll be able to follow along. The format that this is presented in is the DPI recommended format for posting and publishing a budget. It includes the proposed current year budget as well as 2 previous fiscal years. You may notice that the 23-24 states unaudited. So annually, districts in Wisconsin are required to have an independent financial audit, which is performed by an outside agency. And those audits begin in late summer and sometimes into early fall, and they are due to DPI in December. So until those are completed, we list last year's financial data as unaudited. So you'll see the budget is separated by funds. And that's because districts in Wisconsin are required to use separate funds based on the different purposes. There's a few exceptions for when dollars can be moved between funds. So let's start with general fund. We're on page 6 still. And we are presenting a balanced budget for our operating fund. We use general fund and Fund 10 sort of interchangeably when we talk about that. So let's review a couple assumptions and estimates that we're making. So our revenue limit is exactly what it sounds like. It's the limit that the state budget imposes on how much revenue a district can bring in that is composed of state aid and tax levy. State aid and tax levy combined, right now, we are estimating is 95% of our total revenue in general fund. And you can see that as a visual on page 13 if you're flipping back and forth in your booklet. Districts with higher property values tend to receive a little less state aid. So if you think about our revenue limit as, and I'll go back to Superintendent Benson's analogy of a pie. Our revenue limit is a pie, and it's cut into 2 different pieces. It's made up of our state aid and our tax levy. And so as those things fluctuate, state aid is certified, that's really tax relief, and the opposite. So this year, and for an additional 2 years, the District of River Falls will be able to increase its revenue limit by $1 million each year. So this authority was approved by the community when they passed the referendum question 1 for operating expenses, as Dave had mentioned. And this is the only way for districts to exceed the state-imposed revenue cap, which is voter approval through a referendum. So right now, the revenue limit is estimated. It's an estimated amount until a couple of things need to happen. We have a September pupil count, which is actually this Friday, and we will get equalized property values certified through the state on October 1st. So that's why we are just still running with some estimates. We're waiting for some key variables to be certified yet. DPI state aid estimate from July, so we get an estimate in July, and we're using that, and that's at the top of page 7, is currently $21.9 million. And like I said, we'll get the final certification for that on October 15th. If you look on page 8, about 2/3 of the way down, you will see an expenditure coded as $410,000, and it's the interfund transfer. So this is one of the exceptions that I mentioned regarding moving dollars between funds, and it includes a required transfer to Special Education Fund 27 in order to balance Special Education Fund. And I'll explain that a little bit more when we get to Fund 27. So changes in our revenue limit could impact the total budget and the state aid, and will ultimately impact the levy. The school board intends to adopt the budget and certify the levy at its October 21st meeting after those final variables have been received from the state. So again, that's our general fund, Fund 10. If we move to Special Projects Fund, the district has Fund 21 under that section, and this is where our student activity funds are run through, and those are funds that are outside that revenue limit. Those are accounted for there in Fund 21. If we move on to Special Education Fund, or Fund 27, so all of our special education related revenues and expenditures must be accounted for here. Once we tie that, and the revenue in Fund 27 also includes our federal grants that are related to special education. So once we tie that revenue from the federal grants to qualifying expenditures, the remaining expenditures is what the district reports to the state for categorical aid. Of the total $6.9 million in expenditures, we anticipate reporting approximately $6 million for state aid. And currently, districts are receiving 32% reimbursement on those expenditures. So when you hear discussion around the state budget and increasing the reimbursement for special education, this is really what we're talking about. So let's kind of do some math. If the district covers, let's say, $1 million of special ed expenditures from grant revenue and receives 32% aid on the remaining expenditures, where does the other 68% come from? And it's that transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27. So we have to make that whole at the end of every year. And that's shown as a revenue in Fund 27 near the top of page 9, which matches the expense we saw on page 8 as a transfer from Fund 10. So when you hear that transfer of general fund to cover special education funding, that's kind of how that works in a nutshell. Moving on to debt service fund, we have a Fund 39 under that section, and this is taxpayer approved, or also known as referendum approved debt, and it has a separate levy or a separate tax, which is outside that revenue limit. The levy and the debt payments for referendum approved debt is all accounted for in Fund 39. And if you look at the last line in that section, you'll see our total indebtedness. So districts are allowed to borrow up to 10% of their equalized value. At the end of this fiscal year 24-25, the district will be at approximately 1.8% debt to equalized value. So what we do is we take the $3.6 billion, that's with a B, dollars in equalized value, and divide that by our total debt, the $66.4 million. And that gets us to the 1.8%. So we're well below the limit. If we move on to capital projects, we have Funds 46 and Funds 49 in that section. So Fund 46 is actually funded through a transfer from the general operating fund. This is another exception to moving dollars between funds. However, funds cannot be moved back to any other funds once they are transferred into Fund 46. In addition, expenditures from 46 need to align with the district's capital projects plan. So districts need to make sure that they're going to spend those funds on a capital improvement plan or capital projects plan before making that transfer, because once they're there, they're locked there. Fund 49 is where we're holding the funds that the district received from the approved capital or facility referendum, and where those projects are going to be paid from. So again, the community voted in favor of question 2 in February, allowing the district to borrow $28 million for capital improvements. And these funds were deposited into Fund 49. And then this is where those invoices will be paid from over the next couple of years as those projects are completed. Anyone interested in, Dave mentioned this as well, that we have, if you want to follow along on these projects and the progress, we have a web page where we will be posting regular updates. I think Amanda's going to bring that up. And so we'll be continuing to, we provide monthly reports at our finance and facilities meetings, as well as at our regular board meetings, and then to this web page. So follow along if you are interested. Okay, so just a quick review. Our loan payments or debt payments are accounted for in Fund 39, and then we'll be making those expenditures for those projects out of Fund 49. Did I get that right? Okay, Fund Service Fund, or Fund 50, is at the top of page 12, and this is where the district's national lunch and breakfast programs are run through. The district contracts for services, food service, nutrition services from Chartwell's for its food service program, and has had a positive relationship with them for almost 25 years, and we're pleased to have just renewed our contract with them for another 5 years. If you recall, food service programs played a valuable role for families during the pandemic, and funding increased somewhat significantly during that time. We continue to monitor our food service programs and funding as things sort of settle back into a new normal there. Community service, or Fund 80. This fund accounts for the district's community ed program, as well as Kids Club, and both are very popular and valuable to our community. Districts are limited as to what programs can be run through Fund 80 since it is a separate levy outside of the revenue limit. Lastly, within the budget document is the proposed levy. So this is in alignment with what estimates have been since March. We've been providing somewhat regular updates at our finance meetings, and this is in alignment with that. So Fund 10 levy right now is set at the maximum allowed under the current revenue limit estimate. The Fund 39 levy is listed there only what is needed to make the scheduled debt payments for 2025. And the Fund 80 community service levy is set at the same amount it's been for the last few years. And then you'll notice this year we have some tax chargebacks that also get added back to our levy. So those are somewhat insignificant, but we add those back in as well. And then at the bottom of page 12 is information on our OPEB trust or other post-employment benefits. And this is a trust that's set up for district-provided retirement benefits. On page 13, we've got a couple of visuals of the breakdowns of revenues and expenditures for both Funds 10 and 27 combined. We like to combine those because those really do go together to make up the whole of our operating funding. And I think it's important to point out that almost 78% of expenses are for compensation or salaries and benefits. Page 14 shows the history of our mill rate. Currently, we are estimating the mill rate for 24-25 at 6.95. When we were communicating the two referendum questions, the mill rate estimate for 24-25 was 7.23. So we have seen a decrease in that. And as Dave mentioned, we were able to secure a more favorable interest rate on that new debt. The state aid estimate was slightly higher than what we had been using back during the referendum communication. And then property values went up or we're estimating they're going up just slightly more than what we were using as estimates as well. And all of those play into the mill rate. So what is mill rate exactly? Mill rate is used to compare one piece of financial data from one district to another, and and with statewide numbers. So because districts will certify the 24-25 levies in late October, what we're showing in the booklet is a comparison of last year's levies with area districts and our state average. So to give this context, mill rate is essentially how much taxpayers are paying for school taxes per $1,000 of equalized property value. So let's take a real quick example. A property value of $400,000 in the school district of River Falls would pay an average of $2,640 in school taxes. You take the 400 times the 6.6. And then in Hudson School District, the same value of property of $400,000 would pay an average of $3,296 in school taxes. Again, you take the 400 times the 8.24. So it's just a way to compare school taxes using the same equalized value of property. On page 15, we show the estimates of equalized property value by municipality. As I mentioned, these will be certified in October, but these are our estimates for right now. As well, it's showing as well what percent of the total that each of those municipalities make up, which is then used to calculate the percentage of the total levy that's certified to each of those municipalities. I think I've beat this enough, but I'm going to say it again. The Department of Revenue will certify equalized values to school districts on October 1st. Again, another variable that the district is waiting for to set the final budget and levy, and that will be set by the school board at its regular meeting on October 21st. So that's all I have, but we will now take comments on the budget if there are any. And if you would please come to the mic, which is down here, and state your name.
Barry Danielson, and I've been on electric co-op board, township board, and church board. So the township is similar to this kind of financing, and electric co-op deals with mills and stuff like that. So I kind of got an idea of what's going on. And when I look at this, first thing I look at, I read the auditor's report. And the first thing I caught was you're eliminating the management and discussion letter that was required under GAAP. And that's kind of a red flag right off the bat. As soon as I'm going in there further, I kind of figured out our cash flow, what that's used for. And it's, it should be for either financing or capital expenditures. And last year we had $8 million in cash flow. If you add the depreciation and then interest, we deducted off Fund 10 that was paid off Fund 39. So there's a lot of complicated stuff here. So, and then when you talked about Fund 27, that's got a negative cash value on it. It says same as the food fund. And I'm nervous as can be. And then the over-levying for debt. It's known that you can over-levy for prepayment. So those over-levying monies should be restricted to prepayment, not for paying the first $4 million off the new promissory notes. And that brought up another interesting thing. I read the resolution we voted on was on general obligation bonds. So I go to my brokerage account and I look up the bonds. Well, they're not there. They're promissory notes. Well, that's, we didn't vote on promissory notes. So I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying nothing. I just have a lot of concerns. When you come to the rent lease, that's another bad one. We paid for that building. And when you're dealing with LLCs, you cannot look into them. And I don't like that. My co-op tried to do that when I was on the board, and I said, nope. If you can't do it honestly, you don't do it at all. And then the last thing is at the last board meeting when they said you'd eliminate the fire extinguisher or fire suppression at Meyer Middle School to put a second floor into that thing we voted on, that don't sound good. I would like there was just a school shooting. What saved people was this new technology with a silent alarm. Look at that. Don't put that second floor in until you know our kids are safe. So I don't like doing this. I'm not a public speaker. But if you have any questions for me, but I want an honest report. I want to know exactly how the cash flow was spent. Because I asked Jamie, we had $4.6 million in capital expenditures. He came up with 1.9. Where'd the $3 million go? That's our cash. So, and I gave Stacy a pamphlet on an annual report that shows really an annual report of an operation. A co-op has an annual report. You itemize all this stuff. And then we went 3 years with committed funds. You can make this outfit look pretty poor by doing all this fancy stuff. But you had $3.6 million sitting there, put in before the pandemic or during the pandemic for a roof, blacktopping, and everything. You didn't use it. Jamie told me that, we had other funds. When money is committed, it is the policy of the board to use restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. So we had $3.6 million sitting for 3 years during the highest inflationary time, and we didn't spend the money. Give me a break. I can't do that in my own house. And also when we had all the hearings for the new multi-purpose building. I thought I was sitting in a college. They were talking about open enrollment, and all these kids, there's 100 wrestlers are going to leave the district if you don't become a class whatever district. My first worry is education. I have a disabled daughter, and I tell you what, in the 80s, inclusion was a fight. And I would like to see us concentrate on educating everyone. We built the Renaissance School. It's costing us $16,000 a student. So, but we don't open enroll anybody with a handicap. I think that's just weird. I may be prejudiced. And on this depreciation stuff, I learned at a very young age when I farmed that a buddy of mine had a disabled daughter. She was getting SSI. Well, I didn't have much money on the farm. I didn't make much. But I had depreciation. I wrote it off. Guess what? You add it back because it's cash. So I learned from a very young age to look at the fine print. Jamie gave a presentation on defeasance of a bond. And he said, I don't want to get in the weeds with this. The weeds is a small print. That's what you have to look at. The first week I went to my board meeting at St. Croix Electric, the manager put his arm around me. He said, I'll teach you everything there is to know about electric co-op. And I said, no, I'll learn it on my own. So that's where I come from. And if I'm wrong on any of these issues, I want to be told that, because I want to be correct. But I did come to a finance meeting and told them we bought that building by some financing scheme through an LLC because we had an architectural contract that Chad Samuro signed as the owner, which I can't find any board minutes stating that he was able to do that. And then Jamie Benson comes and transfers that to the River Falls Wrens people. So if we had given $3.6 million to the architect to be the general fund to pay the bills, then we gave him $3.6 million. Then all of a sudden the loan comes back to us for 2.8 because we already stuck 900 and some thousand into it. I mean, this is just a hypothetical. So I don't blame anybody. This is what I see. I can only see, read, and understand what I see. So, for one thing, we have $10 million in debt that should be levied this year because the other money that was sitting there, I've got literature, the DPI says you do not over levy unless you prepay with that money. And if that first loan is callable, first note is callable, but why would the first note be callable? We got to make the payment. So there's just some issues here that bother me, should bother everybody here. So it's just what I'm saying, so.
Thank you for your comments.
So.
Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Carol Motes, speaking again. I'd like to thank you for bringing up the topic of the Renaissance Academy. I was the creator of the Renaissance Academy and the lead teacher for the first 9 years of its existence. And we haven't really revisited the whole Renaissance Academy, actually, for quite a long time. I'm not going to look at you, otherwise you can't hear me. So the Renaissance Academy, how did it happen? Why did it ever begin? In the 1990s, the federal government conducted an enormous research study on children who were dropping out of schools. They wanted to know who those children were, what should be done about them nationally. And there was an absolutely shocking result. And the shocking result was that so many children who were dropping out of school in the 1990s in this country were smart. The presumption had always been that they were low students, they couldn't read, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that, they came from horrible backgrounds, and that was not what it was found. And so school districts were charged to look at the problem, and the federal government wanted to know from all of us, what are you going to do about this? And then there was some money that was attached to solving the problem. And our neighbors in Hudson, they chose to spend their money on educating adjudicated youth. So the entry point for Hudson was that you had to have been through the court system, which did not meet the federal mandate at all. Ellsworth, they chose their alternative school to be special ed for behavior problem children, which again didn't meet the federal mandate. River Falls, as usual, was extremely innovative, and River Falls said, no, we want to recapture those children who are smart, who are dropping out of our schools. And at the Renaissance Academy, we found that we were a typical profile of the federal research. The very first student who I recruited is a nursing home administrator. The second one is an engineer. They seem to like to go into nursing. We've had quite a few nurses. We have a nursing supervisor. One of the children who went into the carpentry program at CBTC, but decided that washing windows was more lucrative, and now he washes my windows and makes more money than I did teaching. So I'm glad that I taught him something. So our children met that profile. Now, my research for my PhD was on the indicators of quality alternative programs and what they should look like. And part of that came, and by the way, the committee that the school district convened, we had to have had at least 40 people on this committee. It was enormous. And then we had lots of subcommittees. We met for a year before I was charged with designing the Renaissance Academy. And one of the pieces that came through is that in education, education is similar to the retail world in that you can have the very best Coca-Cola Teach the World ad that we all loved a number of years ago, but it will only reach 90% of the customers. And 10% of the customers will not be impressed. And the same way, River Falls has got an absolutely fantastic high school, but it can only reach 90% of children. The other 10% are not going to be able to thrive in that environment. They struggled in middle school. And so those are the children who are at the Renaissance Academy. So, you know, what is it about these smart kids that the River Falls High School is not the best thing since sliced bread? The profile, the 9 years I was there, and believe me, it hasn't changed very much, are very ADD. They're very attention deficit. Some of them have tried meds, some haven't tried meds, but they can't sit in a large classroom and learn. Their brain doesn't do that. Mental health issues. There's a lot of depression with some of the children. And when you're very depressed and you try and concentrate on doing homework, sitting in a classroom, it just doesn't work. Some of them have family issues. Some of my favorite families at Renaissance Academy, because every family has got to be involved. They can come to me to my meetings, or I know where they live. And so I used to visit them. And some of my favorite families had mental health issues at home. They had financial issues. They were really struggling. And of course, that is transferred to children. It's very difficult to grow up when your parents are really struggling through no fault of their own. Some of them have an alternative lifestyle that makes them very uncomfortable in a regular setting. Some of them just plain don't do well in a large settings. The numbers are intimidating, moving around the hallways is intimidating, they just can't do it. And so thankfully, the River Falls community wholeheartedly, back in 1999, said we have to have an alternative school. And that's what we opened. The new building was expensive. Everybody knows it was expensive. Everything is expensive in River Falls. If you go and try and hire a plumber, an electrician, how much they charge is almost double what they charged 5 years ago. If you look at the other day, twice now, I have seen a gentleman pushing his shopping cart down the street with his worldly belongings in this shopping cart. I've lived in River Falls for 49 years. I never thought I would see something that I associate with big cities in River Falls. We have more homeless. Our neighbor's place has the backpack program. And last year, they had 100 more families that signed up from the backpack program that have ever signed up before. Everything is really, our town is beautiful. We have a fantastic school system that I would challenge anyone to beat, but it does come at a cost. So yes, I appreciate that it's expensive, but if you look at the history of the Renaissance Academy, and average it out between the years, it's very reasonable. We started off in Ames Lab School over at the university. And Ann Buckholz and I, she was my only teacher, we spent the first week scrubbing that place to within an inch of its life. It was filthy. We would not let the children move into that. And we had one big room. She taught at one end, I taught at the other end. And as you can tell, I haven't got a quiet voice, so it was really a challenge. Then from there, the high school was built, so we went to the middle school, and then we made do with that space. After that, when Montessori went into the middle school space, we went to disgusting place, PRs. PRs, it was retrofitted for us very poorly, and then the Renaissance Academy was driven out of PRs because of the black mold. They were told one day, you can't come back. The teachers were getting sick, the kids were getting sick, they weren't sure what was happening, and it was black mold. It was nasty. So because they had to move out the next day, the school district scrambled to find a place for them, and so they went to the old police department. If you have ever been to the old police department, there were the little offices upstairs. There were a couple of big spaces downstairs. It was the most, PRs was the worst place for Renaissance Academy, in my opinion. But the police department sure came close. And then the police department, from there, then it went to Hagstead Student Center. And now, 25 years after the Renaissance Academy was opened, it finally has its own home. Now, when I look at the buildings in the district, I love the elementary schools. They are cute. I used to teach elementary schools at one time. The middle school and the high school, that is a great place for them. And we have the most spectacular high school and a lovely Montessori school. The Renaissance Academy building is not lovely and it's not cute. It is a rectangle box, and it has spaces in there for the kids. But it's their home, and it is the very best thing that they've ever had. And this is what these children deserve. They deserve a respectful building. So I am eternally grateful for the residents of River Falls, for the taxpayers who finally have given these children the home that they deserve. So I want everybody in this room, please give yourselves a big pat on the back, because you are proving, you are proving what you have said you believe, that in River Falls, we educate everybody. We do not allow 10% of our talented youth to drift off into the sunset. And I think we should all be very proud of that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm not against the Renaissance Academy. I'm against the process. I think that whole process should be audited to find out what transpired. There were many closed meetings, and Jamie made the comment. He gets a little, I don't know, he makes statements. And he said, everybody thinks this was done in a back room, a smoke-filled room. Well, you got something wrong. You can't smoke at a public place. They went to State Bank. Todd Schultz did the deal. He's on the school board. Joseph Fisher is a commercial lender. What is Todd Schultz? A commercial lender. We just got a deal over in Glenwood City.
Sir, you've had your opportunity to speak, so if you could wrap up your comments so others could. Thank you. You've had your opportunity to speak already, so if you could wrap up your comments so anyone else can speak.
I'm just saying that I got a right to say what I'm going to say. I'm sorry. We got a superintendent in Glenwood City that slipped a piece of paper to the finance guy, and they audit it, and then they find out that there's some other stuff going on. So I'm just saying, I want answers, and it's a big conflict of interest to have a board member sitting on the finance committee, sitting in all these meetings, and then he's writing the notes and all the stuff that went on there. I can't do that. And another thing is my wife has to do probate for our daughter, and the numbers have to add up, and it has to pass the test. So, like I said, prove me wrong. That's all. And I see
Appreciate it.
So, you get it now? Where
Yep.
I'm coming from?
Yep, so many of the comments you made were opinions, and
Opinion?
we respect that there are things that...
Don't you have a conflict of interest policy?
Yes, we do.
What does that state, No,
Yeah.
I know, I don't blame. But I mean, it's just common sense that you don't go to somebody sitting on a school board to sign contracts and stuff, especially when you deal with the First National Bank. I mean, why don't you go to the First National Bank?
The district did work with legal counsel through the whole process,
Yeah.
and in accordance with state laws, state regulations. So, according to all of those experts and authorities, there was nothing with the Renaissance lease that would indicate something was done illegally or wrong. So
I said
that's
process.
that's why I'm saying that you're well. And if you go to the website where I showed you where our finance and business page, we have posted again the documents that show the process that's legally required for that lease.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah, because we
so
had a
thank you.
special electors meeting to
Right.
ratify it, give you guys permission to do a lease and all objects to River Falls Wrens. You go have a special board meeting, you discussed the River Falls Wren, but you approved a lease to the River City Roundabout, the developer of that project.
Yeah, so we did look back on those agendas and minutes, and then I did reach out to the owner. So it's the same owner, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Fisher. He was the owner of both the River City Roundabout and the River Falls, or RF Wren project.
Yeah.
And so we did ask him about that legal name change, and what he stated was that on August 13th, so right about the time that that lease was being approved, what he determined was that a new entity needed to be formed, mostly or mainly because the use of the property was changing to a school district and for school use. So that was the reason for the owner of the property to then create a new LLC. Same owner, just under a different name. So that was his response for that.
River City Roundabout was before River Falls Wren Center.
Yep, that's what I said.
You did?
Yes,
Well, I thought
he had the River City Roundabout LLC first.
Right.
And then shortly before the lease was approved and established, that was when he created the new RF Wren, I believe it's called RF Wren LLC. And it was because the purpose of that land was being changed to a school district
But
for school
River
use.
Falls Roundabout is still in existence.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I know that. I know that. Yeah, I know. But why did we sign a lease agreement with River City Roundabout that owns a lot next to it and not River Falls Wren project?
Our lease is with the RF Wren LLC.
What's that?
The lease is with the RF Wren LLC.
It's not what they approved at the meeting after the,
That is what's in the minutes.
it is? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and just check my notes, so thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. And Barry, you brought up a lot of points, and many of those I think, we've reviewed and had conversations and correspondence back and forth via email and phone calls. We certainly want everyone to feel at least that they have the information they need and that we are an open book. All of that info. Barry, I believe we invited you to meet with our auditor as well. You were going to maybe get back to us on a time that worked for you. Anything else you want to add, Dave? Okay. That invitation is still open, Barry, if you want to meet with Dave or I at any time to review some of these. We certainly want to make it understandable and make sure we're all on the same page. And again, just state we're not going to necessarily agree with every decision, but we want to, make sure that no one feels like we're hiding any information. Okay?
Thank you. And now we are moving on to agenda item number 9, and that is the approval of our financial issues. So if you take a look at 9A, and do I have a motion to set and approve the school board member salaries for the 2024-25 school year? Raleigh? Okay, we've had a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second to the motion? Carol Motez? Okay, is there any discussion? And hearing none, I will ask for a vote on the motion by a voice vote. All in favor of the motion as it reads in 9A, say aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Okay, to resolution on 9B, to approve, this is a resolution to set the tax levy as presented on page 12. Do I have a motion to set the tax levy as presented on page 12?
Would you mind reading that number for the record?
Sure.
I have 25,516,624.
Yes. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? Bob?
I move that we approve the levy for next year at $25,516,624.
Thank you.
As recommended by the administration.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will take the vote by voice again. All in favor of setting the levy at, and get the amount here. I don't have that page up, sorry about that.
25,516,624.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And we still have one more item on the agenda, and that is to authorize the school board to set the date for the 2025 annual meeting at a later date. Do I have a motion to authorize the school district to set the 2025 annual meeting at a later date? Okay, thank you. And your name, please? Cindy, okay. Thank you. And a second? Lorraine Davis. Thank you. So we've had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, and thank you very much.